by far the biggest story of the day. Lance Armstrong giving up his fight against the U.S. Anti-Doping Agency. And shortly afterward, the USADA announced that it will strip him of his 7 Tour de France titles, his Olympic medal, and any earnings, and give him a lifetime cycling ban, which is expected to happen today. This is what Armstrong had to say. Here's his quote. "There comes a time or comes a point in every man's life when he has to say enough is enough. For me, that time is now. I have been dealing with claims that I cheated and had an unfair advantage in winning my 7 tours since 1999. Over the past 3 years, I've been subjected to a 2-year federal criminal investigation followed by Travis Tygart's unconstitutional witch hunt. The toll this has taken on my family and my work for our foundation and on me leads me to where I am today, finished with this nonsense." Stephen A., how surprised are you that Lance gave up the fight?
Well, I don't think surprise is the appropriate word. I mean, obviously, to some degree I am, but at the same time, things in life can get exhausting. I applauded his statement, to be quite honest with you. The fact that he came out and said, you know, that this is something that has been ongoing for quite some time. I've been going through tests since 1999. I've been accused of things since 1999. There was a 2-year federal investigation that showed up with nothing. There has been an inordinate amount of testing that I've been subjected to. Nevertheless, here I am, still after all of these years, never having once failed or basically had a positive test against myself. He's going through all of these things. The shrapnel of criticism that's been aimed in his direction. People are going to be suspicious of him no matter what. It almost gets to the point where it just seems to be an exercise in futility, Skip. And I just looked at it from the standpoint of his statement where he's saying, I won 7 Tour de France titles. You can try to take that away, but the reality is I did it. It has been done. Everybody knows it has been done. And you do just get to a point. I mean, for me personally, and probably for you, Skip, we'd fight to the death, knowing our mentality. But at the same time, if you're Lance Armstrong, and no matter how many tests you pass, and no matter how many times they've got to go back to the drawing board because they were unsuccessful in incriminating you, at least legally, when you go through all of those things and there just seems to be no end in sight, I almost got to the point where I empathized with his statement and I completely understood his position.
So you're telling me that you have sympathy for Lance Armstrong's strategy here to say, okay, I give up?
Well, you look at it as a strategy. I don't look at it as a strategy. I look at it as a human being that reached the point of exhaustion. Do I think that he's, in this day and age, Skip, well, I mean, of course I think that he may have done something. But if you didn't catch him, you didn't catch him. And you keep coming back and you keep coming back. You keep taking a 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th turn at it trying to get him. You get to a point where you're Lance Armstrong and you say, listen, I've got my foundation, I've got my money, I won the titles. Those moments are things that they can never take away from me. So be it. Have at it. I'm not going to continue to fight with you over this.
Okay, but when you bring you into the equation, me into the equation, you're talking about that we'll fight for what we believe is true because it is true, right? In this case,
yes.
I think he was fighting to continue to live a lie. I think he was guilty as charged by many from the start. And I was shocked when I first heard the news, Stephen A., until I thought about what had actually just happened. I thought, wait a second, he has fought this for years and years in not only court, but in the court of public opinion. And all of a sudden he's saying, I give up, I've had enough. And you can make your case that he's just burned out on it. He's just had enough emotionally. I don't think that's what just happened. I think the turning point came last Monday in a federal court in Austin, where he has a home. And the judge ruled that his lawsuit against the U.S. Anti-Doping Agency thrown out. He was trying to stop them from continuing to investigate him and to stop them from taking him before their court, the USADA court. And the judge said, nope, they're within their rules here. They're within their bounds, that they have the jurisdiction here to let the process run its course. So the next thing that was going to have to happen was Lance was going to have to go before a board of arbitrators, and they were going to have sworn testimony, witness after witness after witness, that USADA had lined up to testify against Lance Armstrong. I think it was strategy. I think he decided, you know what? I will seem less guilty if I avoid the appeals process and this arbitration, because my fans will still hang on to the fact that I'm dismissing this as, oh, this isn't a fair fight. I'm playing by your rules, and your rules aren't right. That's the way he dismissed it, and maybe a lot of those Live Strong bracelet wearers out there, the cancer survivors who idolize Lance, will say, you know what, I'm with Stephen A on this. He just finally got tired of fighting these people because it was an unfair fight. He never, as you said, flunked a drug test, so they're going to be able to cling to what I think is the myth of Lance cleanliness as it pertained to the sport of cycling. So to me, Stephen A, they got him. They had him. He backed off. He said, okay, you got me. That's what just happened.
But, Skip, here's my point. You may be right. I can't disagree with anything that you say, because I do think it's a myth if anybody believes that he's innocent, that he didn't juice, that he didn't use some form of performance-enhancing drug. I'm not saying he didn't. What I'm saying is that I could still be right, too, about the fact that it could very well be exhaustion. Let's think about this, Skip. You pass one drug test after another. You never flunked one. They can't get you. All they could do is use circumstantial evidence based on and coupled with eyewitness accounts, which are all the things.
That's not circumstantial.
Which are all the things. No, but what I mean by that is those are all the things that have been out there for years. I remember the individual, who was it, Hamilton, his teammate that was crying on 60 Minutes. It was killing him to have to dime out Lance Armstrong. We could see it clearly. But the point is, you're Lance Armstrong. All you could do is deny, and revert people back to the test. That's the only recourse you have. They could sit there and say, well, there were eyewitness accounts that saw this. Lance Armstrong says, not true. They could sit there and say, well, we know that you juiced. He could say, well, I didn't flunk any tests. Not true. They can sit there and speculate about how he beat the test. He can say, not true. Now, it's his word against theirs and numerous others. Granted, eyewitness accounts. Again, in the court of public opinion, he's lost. You don't believe him. I don't believe him. What I'm saying, however, is you could still reach the point of exhaustion, because it gets to a point where you're exercising futility here. Your objective is for the court of public opinion to...
Okay, I hear you, but there was a growing mountain of evidence against Lance Armstrong. And I think they would have lined up a parade of under oath witnesses, eyewitness testimony, to refute what he has said all along, that I never failed a drug test. Well, obviously, we all know that if you have enough money, you can figure out how to beat said tests. You can mask all your doping.
Skip, I already believe there's a mountain of, that mountain that you talked about of evidence against him. I think it's been out there for years, but he still denied. To me, it's nothing different than we have been hearing for years. He's been guilty in our eyes for years. He just kept fighting and fighting and fighting. Now he just said enough, because people are going to believe what they're going to believe anyway. You can't take those moments away from me, USADA. You can take the titles, but you can't physically, whatever the title is, but you cannot take those moments. And I don't blame him for that. I'm not going to lie.
Well, Skip, you said money can buy you positive or manipulate test results. 500 tests over like 10 years, that's one a week. Eventually.
Oh, so you're on his side too?
I would say that's pretty. That's pretty.
Oh, so it's two-on-one
evidence. Well, maybe, but hey, how would you remember Armstrong? For all the good he's done, or for the perceived bad that you think he's done?
Stephen A., this is a close call for me, because I want to point out that obviously Lance Armstrong, what a great name that was, Lance Armstrong. Isn't that a great American name? Lance Armstrong did a whole lot for a whole lot of people. Just to reiterate, for those who don't know or don't remember, after winning his first 2 tour titles, he tested positive for testicular cancer. And when they found it, it had spread all the way to his lungs and his brain. And he beat it. And then he started a Lance Armstrong Foundation, and through his Live Strong bracelets, reportedly he raised $325 million for cancer research. And God knows how many cancer victims who became cancer survivors that Lance Armstrong inspired. God bless him for all of that. And let's not lose this, Stephen A. Lance Armstrong was all-time great. I mean, I still think he was the greatest cyclist ever because his aerobic capacity, his VO2 max in those mountains in France was off the chart. So let's not lose sight of the fact that in the end, to me, my opinion is he was forced to cheat just to compete in the dirtiest sport in the world, a sport that makes baseball look like chess or checkers when it comes to doping. And Stephen A., that's the biggest picture, but in the end, I can't help this. I will slightly remember the bad over the good because he did live a lie. In the end, he was a fraud. He lied and he lied and he lied and he lied. In my opinion, given all the evidence that I've read about, there was so much smoke, there had to be a whole lot of fire. So in the end, I can't respect that. I think he duped a lot of people into believing in him. He gained a lot of sympathy because of his cancer survival. Then after that, he got a pass because of it. He cheated because he had to, but he wouldn't acknowledge that because he couldn't, because so many people put him on such a lofty pedestal. So I'm sure they will still believe in him and continue to do so. But to me, I'm going to remember him as a cheater. And I think he just publicly admitted that he did just that.
Well, Skip, first of all, I applaud your position. And I'm watching you, almost hyperventilating for crying out loud because it's breaking your heart to say what you're saying about Lance Armstrong. Yeah. For me, it's not even close. I wholeheartedly agree with you and lean on to the negative side. I think he's a big-time fraud, and I say it with ease. Okay, and the reason I say it with ease is because, again, I spoke out of turn a little bit earlier because there was new evidence that was propping up. It wasn't just the same old evidence. So let me be clear about that. But more importantly than anything else, more so than anything else, it's one thing if you win a couple of Tour de France and as a result, your Live Strong Foundation, you're able to jumpstart that, generate money, proliferate, continue to build cancer awareness, et cetera, et cetera. But he kept racing. So it'd be one thing if you stop there, you make a miraculous comeback, you win a Tour de France, and then, you go on with your life. No, he kept competing. Even in the face of accusations of fraud, of cheating, and things of that nature.
Yeah, all the way,
he still kept going out there.
Until 2010 he competed when he finished third.
That's right.
It's like you keep pushing it because you just can't give it up. And finally, USADA and everybody else is saying, we got to stop this.
Right.
So go ahead.
But the thing about it is that you're getting on USADA, not you, but he was getting on USADA because they wouldn't go away. When in reality, they wouldn't go away because Lance Armstrong never went away.
He wouldn't go away.
And so as a result of that, when you consider the fact that he never went away, if there's a scintilla of truth to these accusations, which we all believe in the court of public opinion in this day and age is absolutely true, and we know how dirty the sport of cycling is, then that means you basically snubbed your nose at it and tried to virtually hide behind all the philanthropic things you were doing.
He did.
To disguise.
I would agree.
To basically disguise what you were doing, which to me makes you an incredible fraud. Because what you do, it's almost like the person out there that's religious or claims to be religious but hides behind their religion to sort of gloss over the transgressions that they commit on a day-to-day basis.
That's a good example.
And then when you bust them, they come, I don't do that. Don't ever accuse me of that. But I'm just saying that's the big thing. To me, that's what he was doing. And I think that when you take that into account, I don't struggle the way that you do to call him a fraud, because clearly he was in that regard based on the mountain of evidence that continues to build against him. There is no doubt about that.
Last quick